We're back on the record. May continue, Ms. Rosenblum.
Ms. Maria, I just have a few more follow-up questions, and then I swear I'm done, okay?
Okay.
So this new schedule that you're starting, I think you said May 5th, right?
Yeah.
At the end of this week?
Right.
So you'll be working Tuesdays from 2 a.m. to 10 a.m.,
Right.
right? Who will be taking Grace to school on Tuesdays?
I plan on having Grace sleep over at Annabelle's house. They live not too far from the school, so they can bring her to school. They also brought their daughters to that school. They're pretty familiar with it. And then I'm going to pick her up at 1 o'clock.
And then the rest of the days, I'm assuming you pick her up and bring her to school?
Yes, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, assuming if I get that new schedule, then Mom would pick her up Friday night.
And this schedule, this May 5th schedule, is this a for sure
Yes,
schedule?
yes it is.
Given that you work at night, what does your sleep schedule look like?
I sleep usually at, between 3 and 7. I get up around 7. I bring my daughter to school. I usually do some work and stuff while she's at school. She'll come back, and then she'll take a nap, and that's when I'll usually take a nap too, and then I go to work. I don't sleep very much, to be honest with you.
And the schedule that you're proposing, the Monday through Friday,
Yeah,
you're off
Sunday and Monday.
Sunday and Monday. So you're basically giving up one of your off days to Mom. You understand that, right? The schedule that you're proposing? But you're off on Sundays, right?
Yeah.
And that's the day you're proposing that Mom has, which means you would not have one of your days off with your daughter.
It's not changing. I pick my daughter up right now Sunday night at 6 o'clock, so I wanted to keep that. So I don't know. I'm not really proposing anything new.
Okay, and then basically what you're proposing, though, is the Tuesday that essentially your daughter would sleep at Anna's home,
Annabelle's, yeah.
correct? And you would pick her up at 1 o'clock.
Right. Well, Monday night, basically I pick her up Sunday night. We have Sunday together. I have all day Monday with her. Then I drop her off at Annabelle's at night. She'll sleep there overnight. Annabelle will bring her to school in the morning, and I'll be at work most of that time. And then I pick her up at 1 o'clock. It's pretty seamless. I think it's pretty well balanced. I get a lot of time with her. She gets time with her friends, and she's going to school. And then I get her back.
We had talked a little bit about the school versus other services, right?
Yeah.
Have you looked into other services?
I have, but I'd rather take the opinion of the people at Child Find. They're definitely way more qualified than internet research, really, is what it comes down to, because you find out all kinds of things. But these people, to me, were very credible at Child Find. There was speech therapists, you had audiologists, you had school teachers, school nurse, everybody coming together and saying the same thing. So beyond that, I didn't feel the need to go into great depths of additional research.
Okay. And so in terms of considering other alternatives or things available in the community, you didn't really look into that?
It's not an interest of mine, no.
And I think you had testified that there was about 2 hours a week that your daughter was getting of the speech therapy. Is that correct?
Of just direct speech therapy, yes.
Okay. And do you have an opinion as to whether or not she needs more speech therapy than that?
The speech therapy angle is implemented into everything they do in the class. What you're talking about is she's going to sit in a room one-on-one with the speech therapy and work on specific things. I actually think she is getting plenty of that, because a 3.5-year-old has so much patience to sit in a room and really get into it. But that has been effective. I don't think adding more or less, going against the recommendations of people I was just talking about, is a good idea. Plus, the other thing I really have to say, she gets speech therapy just interacting with her peers. They all have similar issues with their hearing. They all use sign language. There's speakers built into the wall. so everything that's being said is being heard. I mean, that's all part of overall speech therapy. But as far as the individual sessions, yeah, she gets Tuesday and Thursday for 1 hour.
Okay. And prior to, well, let me go back. We talked about the agreement that you made with Mom in 2015, right? About going to mediation and talk about schooling, right? Remember that discussion?
Yeah.
You guys made this agreement in 2015 to
Yeah.
go
Right.
to mediation before Grace became school age. What changed from 2015 until this round of motions that now you decided you needed to?
In 2015, we sat down, we made the agreement. I felt like I went 2/3 Mom's way in a lot of the things, especially with driving, because I was going to her house mostly. She didn't have to change her schedule. I changed my work schedule, and we made it work, but it was very tough. It was only okay for a while, and then up to the point where Tiffany wouldn't stop harassing people at work and got herself fired, and then the domestic battery happened. It's been a really rough year over there for her. And I feel like there's a lot of blame going around for other people, but now is the time where accountability needs to rest on everybody who's involved. And if you're really looking at the facts, the last year has been impossible to be a co-parent for me.
So is it, I guess I don't really have an answer to my question. My question is more specific to the education, because we had this agreement in 2015, you guys would mediate regarding education.
Yeah.
Hang on, let me finish my
Okay.
question. And then in 2016, I understand that there's a domestic battery.
Yeah.
But what changed with regard to the education?
Well, you're talking about kind of a long time ago, and as far as education, back then she was under 3 years old, so she was already in a program where they come to your house and they do early interventions. Early intervention services ends at 3 years old. Then your next logical option is to consider preschool. The child find evaluation process is where you bring the child to get evaluated and determine which school is best for their specific disability, which is what we did. That's what they recommended, and that's why she's in there. As far as 2015, you can stop bringing that up, because so much changed since then, especially with violence coming from Mom and trying to hurt people around Grace, that I can't co-parent with her. This is just that it doesn't make sense that we're bringing up discussions we had in 2015. We're in May of 2017, and we need to go forward with the best decisions for my daughter. And there's a lot of decisions that are already in place that keep getting dug up. They've been ruled on by the judge already as far as who's making the decisions for our daughter for a reason. It's because Mom can't...
Excuse me. Do not say bullshit in court. I can hear you up here.
Sorry, I didn't mean to say that.
Yeah, I don't need to say anything further. I think that exemplifies my point.
It's not true, none of what he's saying.
But don't say bullshit in
I'm
court.
sorry. I'm sorry. You're right.
Go ahead.
Mom can't control her emotions. That's my answer.
You have to strike that. There's not a question pending.
Okay.
Prior to these educational decisions being made by the judge, right? What was your involvement with Grace with NEIS?
I had Farrell Cafaretta. She was a speech therapist that would come to my house once a week. I had Maria Sanu who would come to my house. She was the coordination development specialist who basically oversaw. I'm sorry, she's talking. I can't even...
Okay. Well,
So,
if
yeah,
you could,
I was involved.
Ms. Wagner, if you need to speak with your counsel, I mean, we just had a break. We can take another break. But try to refrain from whispering during his testimony, making comments about everything that he says,
Yes,
using those facial expressions that you've been using.
I'm sorry.
Okay? Thank you.
So, yeah, when early intervention was in place for my daughter being before 3 years old, they would come to my house regularly, and we would discuss our plans for the week, and we discussed the individual service family plan for her, and that was up until she went to school.
And were you involved with NEIS at that time?
Yes. I was always involved with NEIS. Where the appointments were definitely fluctuated. There were a lot of it at Mom's house because I worked during the day, but other than that, I was always involved.
At that time, were you working day shift?
Yes.
And was Miss Wagner, were you all still working at the same place?
Well, she got fired in April, March, so yeah, after that, we weren't working at the same place
No,
before
I
that.
mean before. So I'm talking about while your child was with NEIS.
Yeah.
Right? Before you guys came to
She
court.
continued with NEIS through to October of 2016, though, so that was after March, too, so I don't know.
So before you guys came to court,
Yeah.
right, in 2016, your daughter was working with NEIS, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you both were working at the same place?
Yes.
Were you always working at the same place since Grace was born?
Yes.
Okay. So from the time Grace started working with NEIS up until you came to court in 2016, you were working day shift,
Yeah.
right? And Mom was working what shift?
Night shift. Swing shift.
And so your testimony was that there were a lot of appointments at Mom's house during the day because you were working day shift.
Right.
Correct? Was Mom primarily responsible for the NEIS appointments during that time?
Before the change of 2016, I would say it's fair to say she did the majority of the appointments with NEIS. After that, it transitioned because I went back to a night shift, and then I was able to do day appointments.
Right, and we understand that Mom got fired and you changed
Yeah.
shifts after that. I'm talking about before.
Right.
So before that time, you'd agree with me. Mom was primarily responsible for the NEIS appointment.
I don't like the way you're saying it, though. Primarily responsible in doing the appointments for different things. If she's available to do the appointments, that's fine, but we're both involved in discussions with the coordinator and what's going on. It's not like Mom's just making decisions and I'm in the dark.
Nothing further.
There's been a lot of questions about mediation and the fact that you guys would mediate. Did you expect that you guys would mediate where Grace would go to kindergarten?
No.
Okay. Do you think the preschool program is the same as Grace starting traditional school?
No.
Okay. And was Grace speaking verbally before she started this preschool program?
No.
If Grace didn't have her hearing loss and speech delay, would you have wanted her to attend preschool at the age of 3?
I can't say, but I don't know that it would have been necessary.
The recent time that Tiffany took Grace to the doctor, and were you able to get the prescription directly from the doctor's office?
No. She got the prescription, and I transferred it from her side of town. That's what I don't understand. She says she had it at home, but then she filed the prescription at the Blue Diamond by her house. Then I had to call Blue Diamond and have them put it over to Walgreens by me. The email she said she didn't have, or she had it at home, so then why did she set up this prescription by her? And then she didn't tell me anything about it until Sunday night.
Is there currently an order regarding Tiffany's contact with your babysitter?
Yes, a judge put in a stay-away order. Similar to my TPOs, she can't come near me and she can't come near the babysitter and try to harass them or anything like that.
Have you instructed the babysitter to contact Tiffany if there's an emergency?
Yes, I have. They have all their information and they're told to call her in case of emergency.
How often would you say Annabelle's mother is there, or how often would you say Annabelle's mother assists with babysitting Grace?
Mainly just Wednesday. She'll be there for like an hour before Annabelle gets there. And she's there, other times, but she's not really babysitting.
And you were asked some questions about Annabelle, the babysitter's criminal history.
Yeah.
Did you review the document that counsel provided you?
Yes, I did.
And what was your understanding of the charge against Annabelle?
It seems that she got arrested back in 2011, and that's where it ended. She wasn't convicted of anything or had any problems since.
Does the registry, are you aware if the charge was dismissed?
I believe it was. Although this stuff is kind of a lot of jargon, but yeah, it was dismissed. It says it up top, battery dismissed.
And after March 2016, how has Tiffany's behavior towards you changed?
It's just everything is a battleground. Every little thing. Feeding my daughter, picking her up, going to school, all the basic stuff that I feel like other co-parents really just get through. Everything is a battle. It involves emails, and now it involves we have to contact Corinne. And it's just gotten worse and worse since. It really was before March is what led up to the domestic battery. And then the more I pull back, the more I find out later that things are going on that I'm not aware of. The level of trust isn't there.
Did Tiffany make accusations that you were a bad parent prior to the battery DV incident?
She has. She tries to say that I'm like not there and involved, give up time with her, don't care about her, those kind of things. But
what kind of allegations have there been since March 2016? Again, from Tiffany against you.
well, she says that I taught my daughter about the word spank and that I spanked her. And she was saying at school that they spanked her, and then Grace knows all these signs about being. I've never spanked her or taught her that word. So I don't know where that story came from or why it went right to the school. And then, there's a lot of confusion about that story.
Has she made allegations about your babysitter and your babysitter's home?
She says they're dirty Mexicans, they're immigrants, they're criminals, convicted criminals, she said was in the last one.
Has Tiffany ever been to their home, to your knowledge?
No.
Okay, have you've obviously been to their home?
Yes.
And what is the state of the home?
It's very nice. It's about, her living room's like the size of this courtroom, and there's a ton of toys, and it's always clean, it smells good, and they're always cooking home food, and there's always people there.
Okay. On the first day of school for Grace, was your TPO against Tiffany still in effect?
Yes, it was.
And did you expect Tiffany to be present on that first day of school?
No, I did not.
And do you think that Grace was upset?
Yeah, well, I think she was confused because I didn't tell her Mom was coming. She's trying to get acclimated her first day of school and meet the other kids and all that. So when Mom came, I think she thought she was being exchanged. She didn't know what was going on. And when Mom had to leave because I called the police, the last thing she signed to Grace was, "Daddy doesn't want me here." And then there was crying, and she went into her first day crying.
What kind of custody exchanges did the parenting coordinator recommend to you?
She recommended shuttle exchanges.
Okay, what's your understanding of what a shuttle exchange is?
It's just basically that we don't interact and there's not a lot of opportunity for us to fight. And
Do you know why she recommended that?
Because she gets in, every time we've attempted exchange outside of Donna's house, with the exception of a few times, there's been issues. Whether it's emails or accusations or this person was there and they weren't supposed to be. And so, yeah, that's why I think she sees all that and recommends it.
If Grace is sick, can you still exchange custody at Donna's house?
No, not if she's very sick.
Okay. Do you recall the August 2016 exchange of Grace that was not done at Donna's house?
Yeah.
The one
that
that
was
counsel asked you about?
Yes, that was the one. When she showed me before, I hadn't remembered, but that was a medical issue. That's why we didn't use Donna's house in that exchange.
Okay. And when you're thinking about Grace's future educational needs, does your decision of where Grace should attend school, does it depend on whether or not she's special needs at that time?
I'm hoping, and I've had a lot of hope for this recently, I thought she would be in special education the rest of her life, but seeing the progress she's made recently, I think she can get in a normal classroom, especially if she continues with the verbal stuff. She can communicate with her mouth, and she'll have sign language as a backup. So that's what I'm hoping, is she'll be able to get into a normal classroom or a private class, whatever we decide.
Okay, and would you would you want the recommendations of the individual education plan team to help you make that decision?
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you say that you and Tiffany were able to co-parent before the battery domestic violence incident?
We had some success, but I have to say over time it's deteriorated. I think she got more comfortable, like kind of breaking little orders here and there. And then when at work, it was really bad because she knew, obviously we work with people, so people that weren't really even involved in our situation directly became involved, and that's where things started getting bad.
Would you have wanted to be more involved in Grace's NEIS program if not for your work schedule?
I sure would have done more of those appointments, but I don't feel like I really don't feel like I missed huge chunks of time with that. I really think I was involved for the majority of it. There was some time where I was working day shift there, and Mom did more appointments, but I can't say I wanted to be more involved because I was involved.
No further questions.
Mr. Marino, the TPO that you've had in place was affirmed by Judge Hughes?
Yes.
Okay. And was there something in that protective order that prohibited Mom from going to the school?
Okay, well, the order that I got, there's a distance thing there. She's supposed to stay a certain distance. However, I believe there was a clerical error because that part's not checked off. It only says she can't come near my house. But it was my understanding in court that she's supposed to keep her distance at all times. So, no, she wasn't supposed to be there. Or really, knowing that my daughter was there too, and then saying she was going there to apply for a job, I mean, is that a story that the court's supposed to...
I'd move to strike. My question is very simple. To your knowledge, in the protective order that's affirmed by this court, was there something that prohibited Mom from going to the school?
Yeah, that's my simplest answer.
What was that?
She had a temporary protective order. She wasn't supposed to come near me.
She wasn't supposed to come near you.
No.
But she could still go to the school,
Well,
right? If you weren't there.
It's my understanding that if you have an exchange place, that you're not supposed to go there unless it's your day to exchange. I don't know why Tiffany is able to go there. We're supposed to do exchanges at Donna's house so we don't interact. So, yeah, it's my understanding that Tiffany wasn't supposed to be there.
Is there some reason that you wanted to exclude Mom from your daughter's first day of school?
Because as soon as she got there, she starts asking the teacher questions about, what are you going to be doing with my daughter? Are there cameras in there? Can I go in and look? Can I check? This is the first day of school. She had ample time to ask all these questions beforehand. So had she showed up, kissed my daughter, and left, I wouldn't have made a stink about it, even though I didn't want her there. But when you start getting involved now with other students' day and their plan, and this is the first day of school for my daughter, and now she's crying and running to the classroom because Mom's there and she's not supposed to be. So that's my objection to the whole scenario.
So I understand your testimony is that it was after Mom got there and started asking questions that you objected.
No, I objected initially.
Okay.
I don't know that I would have called the police if she kissed Grace and said, hey, I love you, I just want to see you on your first day, and left. That's not what happened. She wanted to get involved. She wanted to start doing her thing, which is getting information and harassing people.
Okay, and you think that wasn't appropriate for her to be asking questions about the school her daughter be attending?
At that time, I think it was very inappropriate, yes. Asking the questions, she could have answered them, emailed them, whatever. She needed to show up on day one and make it about her.
Okay, you said she had ample time to go and ask questions.
Yeah.
Was there some kind of open house day or something that you advised to
There's nothing stopping her from what she did that day. She could have went down to the school and talked to people.
And so I'll ask the question again. Was there some reason that you haven't already testified to that you wanted to exclude mom from your daughter's first day of school?
A reason I haven't already testified? I already said my answer.
I want to go back to the IEP that you talked about, and I think we covered this the last time we were in court, but the IEP says that your daughter gets 240 minutes per month
Yeah.
of speech and speech education, and then 120 minutes per month in the self-contained,
Right.
right? So the 120 minutes a month is in the self-contained. Is it your understanding that that is the one-on-one?
No, the 120-minute, the self-contained is, it's just a different way they do it. I don't know if it's one-on-one or if there's other kids in there. I have to double-check the specifics on that. But I do know that she gets to the one-on-one actual therapy Tuesday, Thursday for an hour every week.
And is
The
that-
self-contained, I'm not 100% on the difference there. It could mean that they actually do testing with like audiological devices to test her hearing levels and stuff. That could be self-contained.
But it's fair to say you're not exactly sure what's
I'm
going on.
not 100% sure. No.
And the one-to-one therapy that you're talking about where she gets an hour Tuesday and Thursday.
Right.
Is that identified in the IEP, or is that something that you just know she gets because she goes to the school?
That is in the IEP, and it's confirmed with the people at school.
Nothing further.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry, nothing further.
Oh, thank
Sorry,
you.
it was mumbling.
Okay.
Nothing further.
All right, you can step down. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Do we have any more witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
I'm going to recall Ms. Wagner.
Okay.
Please raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Ms. Wagner, what's your current address?
8689 Horizon Wind Avenue, Unit 101, Las Vegas, Nevada 89178.
How long have you lived there?
7 years.
Who lives with you?
No one, half the time, Grace.
How big is it?
1,118 square feet.
Does Grace have her own room there?
Yes.
You heard the testimony about the March 2015 decree. We talked about that a lot today, right?
Yes.
You heard Dad's testimony about the custodial exchanges that occurred after that decree was made, where it was like almost every day.
Yes.
Okay. Dad's representation of the almost daily exchanges, does that seem accurate to you?
Yes.
Okay. And you heard Dad's testimony that he maybe missed from April of 2015, from the time that decree was signed up until you guys came to court in around 2016, that he only missed 4 or 5 Wednesdays. Did you hear
Right.
that testimony?
Yes.
Do you agree with that testimony?
No.
Why not?
Well, I kept calendars, text messages. I kept records as best I could of all the time that he gave back, and not that I wasn't willing to take it. I was always happy to take it, because we kind of wanted me to have primary before we ever came to court the first time. Then we got joint. Then he would always give it back, and he gave back 600 hours in like 10 months, and sometimes an entire week at a time. And before the degree was even finalized, he gave back an entire week. His birthday week, he said he was going out of town and he was offering Grace, but if I don't accept, what will he do with her? Because other than illegally take her out of town.
So you calculated, based on your calendars and text messages, the amount of time that Dad had given back, and you calculated 600 hours, is that correct?
In 10 months, yes.
And what is that 10-month span exactly?
It was from when the decree was finalized in April of 2015 until March of 2015, when then he put the TPO and took her for a week, and then we had week on, week off from then.
And is that what that the fact that he had given back those 600 hours, is that what prompted you to file your motion?
We always wanted me to have primary. Both of us always wanted me to have primary. I have emails before, and he is so offended that I would show Grace an email that said that he wanted me to have primary, but I don't know, I mean, I'm not going to. But it's just kind of a little bit strange to me. I don't understand why. I mean, he always wanted me to have it, but then he just didn't want, he just didn't want me to have it on paper. Primary.
You heard Dad's testimony regarding the NEIS, right? So we all agree that NEIS has been involved with Grace pretty much since she was born, right?
Yes.
Okay. And up until you guys came to court in March of 2016, NEIS was involved, agreed?
Yes.
Okay. And you heard Dad's testimony that he was working days and you were working swing,
Yes.
right? You would agree with that testimony?
Yes.
And you heard Dad testify that you did a lot of the appointments because he was working. Would that be fair?
Yes.
Okay. And did you keep track of the appointments that you did?
Yeah.
And do you know how many appointments in that time frame that you attended versus Dad attending?
Well, before we came back to court, I had gone to 56, and he had gone to 4. And he didn't even go to the ones that were at his own house before we broke up. He was off work and available, and they were at his house, and he didn't go, and that's on record.
And
He had no concern.
with regard to the NEIS appointments, I thought I heard Dad testify that there's other things going on other than them just coming to your home. Is that correct? Tell me what happened with NEIS.
Yeah, they would always come. They would mostly always come to our home. Like, we went to meet them at the PBS library once, and we went to the facilities once or twice for, like, the pediatrician was there. They have their own pediatrician. All of the services that are offered by the state can be given to a child anytime between 0 and 18 years old if they have a disability. So we went there a couple of times. We saw the pediatrician there. I took her to that, and the Dr. Peacock, she's the audiologist there. So I took her to the place sometimes for some appointments, and then the rest they would come to my house.
And so does NEIS offer services for Grace outside of what they were doing in your homes?
Well, NEIS only has your child from 0 to 3. Once your child turns 3, they have all these services available from the state, simply because they have a disability. It doesn't matter if you homeschool your child, or send your child to public school, or send your child to early school, or homeschool, or anything you want to do with your child. It's federally, mandated, or whatever, so they're free. I mean, they go alongside any way that you want to teach your child these services. This is like the most intensive program, I guess, that he chose.
And so what are the other services that are available after your child is 3 years old?
Well, Delia Kenichi from NEIS recommended to me community therapy, speech therapy, the Deaf Center, the Center for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. They have classes and other stuff sometimes. There's Head Start programs. There's pre-K in the Parks and Rec has pre-K settings if you want to get your child used to school. There's like a million things you could do. Obviously, I always wanted to give Grace speech therapy, and that's my concern right now. Is she's only getting 2 hours a month at this school, is what it says in the IEP. So I don't understand why. I just want to give her speech therapy on Thursday and Friday.
These other services that you've just talked about, the community therapy, the speech therapy, Head Start, these pre-K programs that are available, you've looked into these programs, yes?
I didn't look into Head Start, no, because I didn't really want to do that. I didn't want to send my child to school ever. I wanted to homeschool her, actually. But so I didn't really look into Head Start, but I looked into speech therapy, community speech therapy, and private speech therapy, and the Deaf Center, yes.
Okay. And are there fees for these programs?
If we took her to private speech therapy, there would not have been a fee for all the months that I was asking because we both had culinary insurance, and so she would have had double coverage, and it would have been free as much as we wanted, as often as we wanted. And for community therapy, there's like a small fee, I think, but it's reasonable, and a lot of therapists are willing to work on a sliding scale based upon your income level, so it's very affordable.
And the school that she's attending now, do you know if there's a fee for the school?
There's no fee. Well, I guess a lunch money fee. They keep trying to call me and ask me for money for lunch, I guess. But they won't feed her the lunch that I send her. So.
We talked about exchanges outside of Donna's house. You heard that testimony?
Yes.
Okay. Do you agree that there's only been a handful of exchanges outside of Donna's house?
There's been around 12 or 13 exchanges total outside of Donna's house in the past 14, or no, I'm sorry, yeah, 12 months. 13 months.
Have the police ever been called to an exchange outside of Donna's house?
Not to my recollection.
Have us ever been called to an exchange outside of Donna's house?
No.
The exchanges that take place at Target, are they inside the Target or in the parking lot of the Target?
I think the first one was outside, and then the next two were inside.
Have you and Dad exchanged words during an exchange at a Target?
No.
Overall, how would you describe the exchanges outside of Donna's house?
I mean, they've been fine. The last time we exchanged her, he was saying, look, mommy angry, in sign language. And I said to Corinne, you know, Corinne, I don't care if he tells her that I'm angry, but let him explain why. If he's going to tell her that, let him explain why. Or just don't say it, because, you know, that's not really, I don't know. But other than that, you know, yeah, everything's fine. I don't really think either of us are violent, dangerous people. I just think that we disagree on the way we want to teach our child and deal with her speech problem.
Is it fair to say that you don't want to continue to exchange at Donna's house?
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather not. It's inconvenient, but it's kind of, you know, whatever. It's fair to say I'd rather not, yes.
Do you think it's better for Grace to exchange her in the community as opposed to exchanging at Donna's
I think it's better, yeah, because it's less time consuming, and a lot of kids play with those toys, and I think that could have, you know, I mean, I'm always concerned about her health, you know, so like if tons of kids play with the toys at Donna's house and then she plays with them, it's like more likely that she's going to pick something up. It's just another possibility.
Let's talk about the pediatrician. You heard Dad testify as to Grace's pediatrician.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
Yes.
the pediatrician?
Yes.
Okay. And did you and Dad select the pediatrician together?
Yes, we've had a few in that same office. You know, we've seen them all. There's like 3 of them, so we've seen them all.
And when you schedule a pediatric appointment for Grace, how do you let Dad know?
Via email with Corinne since this process began.
And before that, how did you let Dad know?
Dad didn't have any concern what I did when I did it. Like, he didn't care. If I would have told him I'm taking her, he would have said okay.
This issue that was brought up just most recently with the yeast infection and the medication. I believe it was Dad's testimony that you had the medication but didn't give it to him. Is that accurate?
Well, it's kind of like there was a prescription, and I knew that he would be able to get the one at Walgreens, and I already had some of the same prescription from a prior problem. So I just figured he could get the one at Walgreens, and I had one already, so that way we were both covered.
The yeast infection issue, did you communicate that to Corinne?
Yes.
And you took photographs of your daughter?
Yes. And she had clothes on in all the photographs that I ever took of her. If I had to expose a particular body area, it's to take a picture of that, but it's not like pornography or anything like that.
Okay. And outside of Corinne and Dad, did anybody else see those photographs?
No.
We have talked a lot about the IEP with school. And is it fair to say your understanding from the IEP is that your daughter is only getting 120 minutes a month of speech therapy?
Yes, I believe that's what the IEP says, yes.
So 120 minutes a month is like 2 hours a month. That is your understanding?
Yes.
Okay. And you disagree with that 2 hours a month?
Well, yeah.
Okay. What would be your plan if the judge told you you didn't have to take her to this school?
I would love to be able to take her to therapy instead of school on Thursday and Friday. I mean, or even Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It's 6 hours out of our day for her to go to this school, and she's not getting any therapy at the school, and she has a significant delay. So if we could alleviate ourselves of that and just, you know, have a 20-minute ride to therapy, an hour of therapy, and a 20-minute ride home, it would leave us a lot more freedom to do, you know, fun stuff, other activities, and
Have you looked into places to provide this speech therapy in lieu of this school?
yes.
And where have you looked at?
There's a therapist, Chris Borcellini, and there's like a list of community therapists to tell you the truth. I haven't memorized all their names, but I know that I called Chris's office, and I called another one or two therapists on the list to just see about what the rates would be and would they do sliding scale, and if that was possible.
Is the reason that you don't or can't take Grace to therapy during your custodial time as you have it right now?
She's just too tired. By the time she gets home from school, she's already been, up since like 7 or so in the morning, and then an hour ride to the school, and then 4.5 hours at the school almost, and then another hour ride home, and then she's usually tired and wants to take a little nap. And then she wakes up and has dinner and needs to take a bath and go to bed. Like, we just don't, it's not feasible. It's impractical for me to even try to plan therapy when she's already in the school, and it's consuming so much of her time.
You heard Dad testify about some of the benefits that he's seen from the school, right? You heard
Yeah.
testimony that she's potty trained and
Yeah.
she's singing her ABCs and animals and things like that. Do you attribute that to the school or to her age or to something else?
I think there's a lot of factors, right? She's 3 years old, so the older the kids get, the more they're exposed, the more they're likely to talk. Like a child with delayed speech is probably going to start around 3.5. Probably going to start talking around 3.5. Like if they're delayed, it seems like that's usually about the time that they start talking, start mimicking, or willing to. So I don't really attribute it to the school. I attribute it to what would have happened whether she was in the school or not. And I think it would have happened more effectively if she was not in the school, because she would have been getting direct speech therapy. And the thing of it is, she's not around anybody that speaks all day, and she's not around anybody that speaks English all night on the father's time. So it has nothing to do with anyone except if my daughter cannot hear and imitate, then if my daughter can't hear, then she can't imitate. And that's how speech works. So if people are speaking Spanish around her all night, she's not going to understand. And if the kids at school, they're all deaf or hard of hearing, so they don't talk. None of them speak. The teachers only speak. So I think that she would have developed more appropriately with other methods, in my opinion. And furthermore, I taught my daughter the alphabet when she was 15 months old, and I have her on film reading, signing, doing the alphabet, counting, telling me the colors of the rainbow, and all the fishes in the ocean. She could do that when she was 2.5, and that was 6 months before she started this school. And I have her on film doing all of that. So no, I wouldn't attribute it to the school, not whatsoever, and especially not when the teacher was telling me 3 weeks ago that Grace was reading her books. Of course my 3-year-old is reading you books. I taught my 3-year-old to read when she was 2.5.
Do you have any other children?
No.
Your mom's here in court.
Yes.
Right? What kind of relationship does she have with Grace?
Good. Very good.
Do you have any other family members that live here in Las Vegas?
No.
You're still in Las Vegas with Grace for the foreseeable future?
I would love to move somewhere with a larger deaf or hard of hearing community. But that's obviously up to the father's consent.
How would you describe your relationship with Grace?
Awesome. I mean, I think it's great. She's a super good kid. She's easy to learn. Like, she's willing to learn. She's willing to cooperate. She understands the difference in good and bad behavior. She's willing to be good. She's very outgoing. She's open. She's friendly. She's sweet. She's very smart. And she's an awesome kid.
Prior to this case, what brings you guys here now? Were you and Dad able to co-parent? You heard him testify that it's been difficult to co-parent with you. Do you believe that?
I have never felt like it was a comfortable thing. I felt like we were able to do it, sort of. I mean, co-parent means basically complete silence at every exchange. That's all we ever did. We saw each other 10 times a week and just traded the baby. Here, go. And then we leave. I mean, it's not that we didn't, I think we don't see things the same way. It's like, I'd be willing to communicate and talk to him about things, but he's not. For almost a year and a half, I was trying to ask him what he wanted to do about school, and he wouldn't say anything. And then he goes behind my back and sends her in the school. I mean, he agreed in 2015 to send her to school in 2020. Then in 2016, what changed his mind? Like, and then I'm trying to ask him about it over and over. Why do you want to send her there? What about all these other options? And he won't talk to me. So it's like, I try to co-parent, but, you know, but everybody has their own perception. I'm sure he looks at me the same way, you know? I don't really know how.
So your testimony is that you've tried to talk to him about the schooling prior to coming to court.
Many, many issues I've tried to talk to him about, yes.
So what are some of the other issues?
I asked him at least 6 months ago, please get Grace's ears cleaned before you turn the hearing aids up, because I want her, she took a test at Child Find, and I don't think it was accurate because she was falling asleep. Also, I think her ears were clogged. Her ears have a tendency to get clogged. They have impacted earwax because of wearing hearing aids all the time. So for a long time I was trying to explain to him, Mark, please have her ears cleaned and then have them tested and then have the hearing aids adjusted. Otherwise, you're going to have them too loud, and then we're going to have to go and readjust them, you know, once she has her ears cleaned or once we get accurate results of a hearing test, because she wasn't even old enough to take a behavioral hearing test until just recently, until she turned 3.
Okay, and did he
He
respond?
never scheduled. He didn't schedule that. He wouldn't go to the, we had that one doctor, what's called a genetic specialist. I tried to remind him about that, Dr. Raja, like 3 times. This was before court. He didn't want to go to Dr. Raja. First he didn't want to, then he said he would, then he said I was wrong about the appointment time, then he just didn't go. He said he would make an appointment to get her ears cleaned, he never did. He said he would make an appointment to get her ears tested, he never did. She came home with hearing aids ripped in half once. I have a note from the audiologist, and, you know, I had to go fix that. It's kind of like, I mean, I've always done everything, but I don't care. It's my baby. I want to.
The first day of school, you heard testimony about that issue, right? Mm-hmm. We've talked about that a lot today.
Uh-huh.
Is it fair, when you got there, Dad didn't want you there, right?
Well, I got there a half an hour before he was supposed to be there. That was my intention, was to not see him. I had no intention of seeing him. I went straight into the office, and I asked them, you know, hey, I applied, blah, blah. My kid's starting today. I also want to meet her teacher, and the position was for the aide in her room. That's why I wanted to meet her teacher. And I'm like, you know, they said it would be fine. I said, before they don't really get along, are you sure? And they, are you sure it's okay if I'm here? I don't really know if we should all go in a group together. They brought me back to the group, and then I saw the father talking to the, I don't know, administrator that brought me there while I was talking to the teacher. So the teacher, Felicia, was just I was just asking her what goes on at the school, like what's a normal day like, or what do you teach my child, or how does this work? And he threw a fit and called the cops. So then I just said, whoa, I did not expect any of this. I did not want any of this, and I just left.
Were there words exchanged between you and Dad?
I don't think there were, no.
So your understanding was he didn't want you there and you left?
Yeah, he might have said something like, you're not supposed to be here or something. I don't really remember, honestly.
Aside from the time where the restraining order was in place and you didn't see Grace because of the restraining order, have there been other times where Dad has not allowed you to have time with Grace where you've asked?
No, you always get back time. You get extra time. All of it.
And so now you hear this schedule that Dad is proposing, right? This new schedule that he's going to have starting May 5th.
Mm-hmm.
And the testimony that Grace would be spending the night with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that?
I think it's likely she's been spending the night at someone else's house this whole time, because he's not getting off work until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and Grace starts school at 9 a.m. So I think that the babysitter has just been keeping her and then taking her to school, because the babysitter lives just as close to the school as he does. So I'm pretty sure that's what's been happening, honestly. Someone else has been just raising my kid entirely.
Would it be your preference that Grace be with you instead of with a babysitter?
Absolutely.
Do you have a proposed schedule for the court? What are you proposing?
Well, I think I should have Grace, I'd like primary, and the father has her on his weekends, but, you know, I'm not even sure what his weekends are right now. If we were to keep it joint, then I would hope to be able to pick her up from school on Wednesday as opposed to on Thursday, because I don't even get 3.5 days right now, and she's just going to a daycare anyway. So my proposed schedule would be that I pick up Grace from school on Wednesday, and then I drop her back off to the school on Monday. That way we don't ever have to see each other. Because like he said, he's only going to get her Sunday night at 6, and she goes to bed at least by 9, so might as well just drop her off to the school Monday, and then he could have his day off Monday with her, because he wasn't even aware that he was like maybe giving it up.
I don't have anything further.
Okay. Tiffany, when you applied to the school district, isn't it true that you submit your application online?
Yes.
Okay, so you didn't need to go to the school to speak to the teacher on that date?
Sure. Right.
Okay. And you claim that you have records showing that Mark gave up time. Did you produce those records into evidence?
Yes.
Okay, so those records were produced to...
I mean, I don't know if I submitted them too late, but I have all kinds of text messages that say, would you like Grace, would you like Grace, would you like Grace? They have the
Were
time
they
and date.
produced within the discovery deadlines in this case?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Do you know how many days prior to trial you produced those?
No, I'm not sure.
Okay. So the only records that you have in evidence is your own testimony, correct?
I'm not sure what was admitted in evidence.
Is it also your testimony that Mark wanted you to have primary custody, but you guys agreed upon a joint custody schedule for the custody decree in 2015?
Right.
So is it your testimony that the decree does not reflect what you two agreed upon?
Oh, no, we agreed upon it.
Okay, so it would be fair to say that you two agreed upon joint custody.
It would be fair to say that the court said it was ridiculous that I wanted to pick up my child at 2 a.m. and could not maintain
I want to
primary.
please strike her answer, please.
Oh,
Yes, it's
okay.
stricken.
Okay. So the question was, would it be fair to say that the two of you agreed upon joint custody?
Agreed is pretty flexible, but, you know,
Did you sign a parenting plan that was effectively joint physical
like I
custody?
had to sign something that said I gave my child
The
half.
question is,
away
did
to
you
him.
sign the parenting plan?
Yeah, I had to.
You were forced to sign the parenting plan?
Well, I couldn't have primary, so I was forced to give up joint.
The question was, were you forced to sign the parenting plan?
No, but I also was not allotted primary, so what was my other option then?
Have you secured employment since the last hearing?
Like I said, I'm self-employed.
Okay, you testified at the last hearing that you do not receive any income.
Right.
Okay, so is it your testimony now that you're working but you don't receive any income?
I haven't started generating profits from my business yet, no.
And how would you pay for this private speech therapy that you've proposed?
I propose community speech therapy, which works on a sliding scale, so I'm sure I'd be able to come up with the $15 fee.
Okay, and why do you believe it would be a $15 fee?
Well, I believe that based upon the people that I've spoken with, they said there was a sliding scale. Some people are as low as $15 an hour, some people are as high as...
And did you inform them of Mark's income?
No.
And wouldn't it make sense that if it was a sliding scale, they would want to see both parents' income?
I thought that if I was going to take her, if he's going to use the school and I'm going to use speech therapy, shouldn't I be responsible for my portion of speech therapy then?
I don't believe that you answered my
Would
question.
you like Mark to be responsible for her
My
portion?
question was, how would you pay for it?
The only
And
reason they would take into consideration Mark's...
there's not a
Okay,
question
all right.
pending to you right
Hold
now.
on. You can't speak over each other.
Okay.
So wait till she finishes the question and then give your answer.
Okay.
Okay. So right now, it would be true to say that you don't have any income that could be used to pay for speech therapy.
No, I wouldn't say that's accurate. I mean,
So
I have...
what income are you earning?
What income have I earned, like, from my business? I have not earned any yet, but that's not, like, my projected income is, I have a feasible projected income that has nothing to do with what's currently
The
happening.
question is, though, have you earned any income
Not yet, no.
that you could use to pay for speech therapy?
No, I have savings I could pay with speech therapy.
Do you think it would be the best use of your funds to use savings to pay for speech therapy when there's free speech therapy offered through the school?
There isn't free speech therapy offered through the school. She gets 2 hours a month. That's why she needs additional therapy.
Okay.
Is there free therapy offered through the
Are
school?
you aware that Mark has testified that she gets 2 hours a week?
Are you aware that the IEP says she gets 120 hours a
You
month?
actually have to answer my questions.
All right. You need to stop being argumentative with counsel. You don't ask her questions.
Okay.
Just answer the question that she's posing
Okay,
to
okay.
you.
Sorry.
So, are you aware that Mark has testified that Grace is actually getting 2 hours a week of speech therapy?
I am aware that Mark testified that, yeah.
Okay, and have you spoken to any members of the IEP team to have them explain to you how much speech therapy Grace is actually getting?
I was prohibited from speaking to the IEP team, so no.
Okay. Isn't it true that you have contacted Child Find and obtained information about the school and the programs that are being given to Grace?
No.
So it's your testimony today, under oath, that you never contacted the Child Find program to find out which schools Grace could go to and what the program options were.
I've contacted Child Find many, many times.
Okay,
However,
so-
I have never discussed my child's individualized evaluation plan with anyone. No.
So you just testified that you're understanding that you could not contact Child Find, but you also testified that you have contacted Child Find many times. Is that correct?
And this states the testimony.
Say your question one more time.
Okay. She testified,
She contacted Child Find many times.
contacted many times, but she also testified that she was not permitted to contact Child Find
I
pursuant to
believe
the
that's
order.
by court order,
Yes.
because she had threatened the people at Child Find if they proceeded with the IEP, and you came back to court, and I ordered that she not be involved in the process because she threatened the people who were doing the evaluation.
But I didn't.
Okay. After the judge made the order that you were not allowed to contact Child Find, did you contact them for any reason?
In regard to my daughter, like in regard to my daughter's IEP,
Any reason?
I probably called them after to see how many total communication schools there were, to ask them that.
So you did contact them? Okay. You testified that Mark signed something inappropriate to you at the Target exchange, like "Mommy angry." Is that correct?
I didn't say it was inappropriate, but I did say Mark signed, "Look, Mom, angry."
Would you
yeah.
have any objection to us playing Mark's video for the court?
You could play Mark's video. I played Mark's video too. You can't see Mark, my daughter, the Target, myself. You can't see anything in
So
Mark's
would
video.
you agree that the video does not show Mark signing anything?
I would agree that the video was probably conducted at a different
The
place
question
and
is,
location.
would you agree that the video does not show Mark signing anything to you?
Yeah, I would agree the video
Okay.
does not show Mark signing.
Okay. And you testified that Mark didn't care if you took Grace to the doctor.
Would you?
Okay. And my next question, on that note, do you believe that you don't need to notify Mark if you take Grace to the doctor?
Do I believe I don't need to notify Mark if I take Grace to the doctor? No, I believe I should, and I always have via the parent coordinator.
Okay. You testified previously that you didn't notify Mark because he didn't care. Are you changing your testimony now?
When are you referring to that I did
I'm
not
referring
notify
to
Mark?
the time period since last March, March 2016 through the present. So there's a small time period before we have the parenting coordinator. But I'm talking about the last year.
Okay, so in what of those 8 months did I take Grace to the doctor and allegedly not tell Mark? Is that what you're saying? I took Grace
My
to the
question
doctor in
is, do
those 8
you
months?
believe that you need to notify Mark of times when you take Grace to the doctor? And have you notified Mark of those times?
Yes and yes.
Okay. So what about the incident where you didn't notify Mark about the prescription that the doctor had given Grace for the yeast infection?
I did notify Mark.
Okay. Did you notify Mark immediately after the appointment?
Yes.
Do you have any proof of that?
It was an email to the parent coordinator.
Okay, so it's your testimony that after the appointment, you went back to your home or wherever and emailed Mark? Isn't it true that Mark had to send an email to Corinne asking what had happened at the doctor's appointment?
I don't honestly know which time that you're talking about because there's been so many
talking
times
about
that she's
the
been taken
recent
to the
incident,
doctor.
which should
I mean,
be
as
fresh
far
in
as
your
I
mind.
remember, yes, I told Corinne, hey, I told Corinne, Gracie says she's getting spanked at the school. What can we do? Corinne says take her to the
Right, her
pediatrician.
answer, please.
Shouldn't have taken her to the pediatrician. I told her I'm taking her to the pediatrician, yeah. And Mark knew that I was taking her to the pediatrician.
Question
yes.
is, did you notify Mark immediately after the doctor's appointment of what had happened at the doctor's appointment?
I don't recall.
You testified that you've taken pictures of Grace with her clothes on.
Yeah.
Have you also taken pictures of Grace with her pants down?
To show the diaper rash? Yes.
Okay, how many pictures would you say you've taken of Grace with her pants down
I
that
think
were
I-
sent to Mark and Corinne?
I think there were like 2, maybe 3.
And that would be 2 or 3 in the last month? Since the last hearing?
Now, I'm talking about her diaper rash. There were 2 or 3 of the diaper
My
rash.
question is-
And then there were some of the armpit,
How many
and then there
pictures?
were some of her face.
How many pictures have you
I
taken?
didn't count them. So I can't tell you. I don't know.
You still need to wait for her to finish her
Sorry.
question.
I'm sorry.
Okay, would it be more than 2 pictures that you've taken of Grace with her pants off?
I've never taken any with her pants off. No. I pulled them down a little so you could see
Her
the diaper
pants
rash.
down.
And there were about 2 or 3 of those, yeah. There were about 2 or 3 of those.
Okay, and did Grace seem upset when you were taking these pictures?
No, absolutely not.
So does Grace think it's normal to have her pants pulled down and pictures taken now?
Grace thinks-
Objection, speculation.
Just lay some more foundation. Like
Okay.
if that had occurred, it's a regular occurrence. I mean,
Is this a regular occurrence for Grace now, that it's normal if you pick her up that you ask her to pull down her pants or you pull down her pants to take photographs?
No, that's not a normal occurrence.
Okay, do you know when any of those pictures were taken?
I mean, I took those pictures right as soon as I noticed her diaper rash. I was changing her pants, and I noticed diaper rash, and I said...
Would you say that those pictures were taken on Thursday after you picked Grace up
They were
from
taken-
school?
Yeah, they were taken on Thursday, yeah.
And isn't it true that you have not been taking Grace to school on Fridays?
No, that's
Since-
not true. I mean, I think that you're...
Okay, let me ask you this. Since March 2016, there would be approximately 7 school Fridays. We take 1 week off for spring break. Would that be
My
your
daughter didn't
understanding?
start school until November 30th
March
of
2017.
2016. So from March 2017, what now?
March
There were 4 Fridays.
2017 to present. There'd be 4 Fridays in March. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, I think so.
How many of those Fridays did you take Grace to school?
I think 1.
Okay. And there would be 3 Fridays in April. Is that correct? Because 1, she had no school for spring break.
Okay, so that leaves us with 2, and 1 I took her to the doctor,
us
and
with
1 my
3.
car was in the shop. I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's 3 Fridays in April, correct? That there would have been school for Grace.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. How many of those Fridays did you take Grace to school?
1.
Okay. And was Grace sick on any of those Fridays?
Yeah. The Friday that she didn't go was the time that Corinne told me I had to take her to a pediatrician if I thought there was a problem.
Okay. I'm going to
So
ask to strike
Friday
your
she didn't
answer.
go because I had to take her to a
The
pediatrician.
question
And the
was,
next Friday,
was Grace sick on that day? And that's why she didn't go to school.
yeah, she had a yeast infection in her armpit.
Okay.
So-
Isn't it true that you took her to the pediatrician because of the abuse allegations that
I
you're
took her
making?
to I took her as soon as I could to the pediatrician, and she just so happened to have a yeast infection in her armpit.
Do you think a yeast infection would prevent Grace from attending school?
No, but I think abuse would. And I think if my daughter needs to go looked at and make sure that she's not getting abused, and I think if my parent coordinator told me to do that, then yeah, I'll let Grace miss and listen to my parent coordinator's direction and take her to the pediatrician.
Isn't it also true that you never discussed any of your abuse allegations with Mark prior to contacting the school?
I didn't have abuse allegations. I asked the school, hey, my kid says Felicia's hitting her. What can we do? Can we look into this?
You don't
Is she
believe that
hitting her?
that's an abuse allegation?
I guess it is now that you're saying it like that, but I didn't perceive it to be like something that I would. Why would I tell Mark that?
If Mark believed that Grace was being abused, would you want him to discuss that with you prior to contacting the school?
No, I would want him to contact the school immediately. Anytime anybody is abusing my child, they should be stopped immediately. It shouldn't be like
You would be
calling
fine
a whole bunch
if
of
you were
people.
excluded from that process? That would be fine with you?
I didn't exclude Mark from the process. I let Corinne know as soon as I could, and Corinne let Mark know. We all let Mark know. We all have an email chain.
Isn't it true that Mark found out from the school, not from you?
Objection, speculation.
she can answer if she knows.
I don't know how Mark
Who's
found out.
Felicia?
Her teacher.
Okay, and did the school get back to you regarding the abuse allegations?
They basically told me there was nothing they could do.
Okay. Wouldn't it be more accurate to say they told you the allegations were unfounded?
No, what would be the most accurate to say is that they pulled my daughter out of class, tried to ask her a few questions, all of which she mimicked, repeated back to them. She would not give them an answer to the question. She would only mimic the question. Therefore, the principal told me that he could not ask her if she was getting spanked.
If you think that it's so important for Grace to have her ears cleaned, how come you haven't made an appointment with the pediatrician?
I have.
Okay, you testified that you wanted Mark to make an appointment to take Grace.
It's on May 19th. I gave Mark 6 months to do it. He didn't do it, so I just made it.
Isn't it true that you could have made that appointment at any time also?
Is it true? I suppose it is. Either of us could have done it. Mark didn't want to, but he adjusted her hearing aids is the problem. I would not have adjusted her hearing aids
Okay, I would like to strike the rest of that answer.
And I have taken her to get her ears cleaned. I'm the only one that's ever taken her, and I've taken her
Strike
twice.
that, Your Honor, also.
Yeah, it's stricken.
Okay. You testified that the babysitter, Annabelle, only speaks Spanish.
No, I testified that...
Is Annabelle a friend of yours?
No.
Okay, have you ever spoken to Annabelle?
Maybe.
Okay. Isn't it true that Annabelle worked at Planet Hollywood?
Yeah, I guess so.
And does Planet Hollywood require you to speak English while you're working there?
Not for every position.
Okay, and do you know what position Annabelle had?
Server, I think, yeah.
Okay. Do you believe a food server would be required to speak English at Planet Hollywood?
What I believe...
Speculation.
Did she work at Planet Hollywood?
Yes, she did.
And she can answer.
Yeah, I think she should, but the problem is she's not the babysitter. She's not even off work by the time Mark starts.
You testified that everyone in the home only speaks Spanish.
They only speak Spanish in the home.
And you have never been to the home, correct?
Right, I had another friend that used her
And
as a
you
sitter.
you don't know Annabelle personally, correct?
I've met her, but in passing only, so I don't like to know her.
And Annabelle used to work at the same place where you worked.
On a different shift.
And in your shift, you had to speak English to your customers, correct?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And have you ever met Annabelle's husband?
No.
Okay, so how do you know that he only speaks Spanish?
Because I had another friend that worked at Planet Hollywood who they used Annabelle's people to watch their child, and they told me that they couldn't even get a message to the daycare worker. They had to call every single other family member who did speak English so that they could relay a message back to the mom, who is the sitter, who is an illegal immigrant.
Stricken.
Okay, so it would be fair to say that you don't have personal knowledge of what language is spoken in Annabelle's home,
Spanish.
correct?
Spanish.
You don't have personal knowledge.
Oh, like have I been there? No. Right.
Okay. And you haven't personally asked Annabelle what language she speaks in her home.
No, I've been prohibited from interacting with the babysitter completely.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Rosenblum.
Just briefly, Your Honor, I'd move to admit Defendant's Exhibit B, which is the text messages of Dad giving up custodial time. Would argue that plaintiff's counsel opened the door when she asked Mom what she brought to court to support her position, that Dad gave up the time.
Your response.
Your Honor, I would object. Once again, these documents were not produced to me. She did not show up to exchange exhibits. They weren't produced prior to that. And I also don't believe they're relevant. I believe if I were to look at the dates, a lot of them are probably barred by McMonigal. It's not relevant what they did prior to the last custody order. And it's not my client whose actions are on trial here today.
Are they barred by McMonigal?
They are not. They're 2016 text messages. The last custodial order was 2015.
Okay. Have you looked at them?
I'm not sure which one she's referencing. Again, it was my understanding that she would not be permitted to have any exhibits.
What is your offer of proof?
I would have my client authenticate the text.
No, what's your offer of proof for the...
That they support her position that Dad was giving up 600 hours of custodial time prior to coming to court nomination. for mom to have primary physical testing.
What exhibit number do you have them as? Or letter?
B, page 15.
You have them as B? Your Honor, I would still object. There's no dates on any of these, so we have no proof that these are actually from the date she alleges they're from, other than her own testimony, which is not credible. Though some of them have dates, but some of them do not.
Where's the proposed exhibit?
It's B, exhibit B. And there are a lot of texts in there, Your Honor, I agree.
And the one that have dates don't have the year.
90 pages,
Page 15.
80 pages,
I'm sorry?
80, not about 80
Yeah,
pages.
it's approximately 80 pages.
And you want me to go through this and calculate if he gave up 600 hours?
No, it's our position that these, again, the question to mom was, what proof did you bring with you to court that dad gave up custodial time? Mom's testimony was it was about 600 hours. The question from counsel on cross was, what proof did you bring with you to court? She has the text messages in court to show that dad was giving up time.
Well, I'm just flipping through these. I disagree with your assertion.
Uh,
Just a lot of arguing back and forth about who's going to do what and who can do what, and
I have, on page 15, I have Tuesday, February 23rd, you're keeping grace. That's from Dad. And then February 16 has grace.
Is this the one that doesn't have a date?
So it's written up at the top, 2016, and then the date is, it's small.
of February, what year?
February 23rd.
But I do object to that, Your Honor. The 2016 is handwritten.
No, I know. I'm not saying that that authenticates it. I'm just saying, what's the date? I see February, but I don't see a year. I don't know who's speaking.
I can submit my phone. The phone has everything. The phone has the date.
I don't think that supports your contention that he gave up custodial time. It's not admitted. And for the other reasons that I've already stated. Any questions?
No.
By Ms. Rosenblum? Ms. Rosenblum?
I'm sorry.
Yes or no?
I'm sorry?
Yes or no? You have more questions?
Oh, I was just going back through my notes real quick. Court's indulgence. The testimony that you gave, Ms. Wagner, about this appointment on May 19th, is that a current appointment that
Yeah.
Grace has? So this is an appointment she has coming up on May 19th.
I just made it, yeah.
Okay. And did you notify Dad of the appointment?
No, because I just made it. I just made it on like Friday.
And this is an appointment for what?
To get her ears cleaned.
Is getting her ears cleaned something that Grace needs to have done frequently?
She should. She gets impacted wax from her hearing aids.
And has she had prior appointments for the ear cleanings?
Yes.
And has Dad made those appointments or you?
Me.
And you had asked Dad, I guess I was a little confused. Is it your testimony that Dad adjusted the hearing aids and he did that prior to the ear cleaning?
Yeah. He did that without my consent.
And is that something that Dad does, or does he have to go somewhere and have them done?
He had to go to a doctor and have it done. He didn't let me know he was going to the doctor. He didn't let me know that he was having that done. And they turned him up based on inaccurate tests, because the tests themselves claim that they are inaccurate. The tests done by Child Find claim the inaccuracy of themselves because Grace was falling asleep, and it's in my evidence.
And so it's your testimony that she should have her ears cleaned first and then have the testing to determine if the hearing aid should be turned up.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And so is there a plan after she has her ears cleaned to have the hearing aids readjusted?
I want to get her ears cleaned and then get her a hearing test and then get her aids adjusted. Yes. It's like 3 separate appointments.
Aside from the time with the protective order, has there been any times where Dad has asked you for more time that you have declined?
No.
Nothing further.
Ms. Kerrigan.
I just have a couple of quick follow-ups. You've attended appointments with Grace's audiologist, correct?
Yes.
And isn't it true that the audiologist would look in Grace's ears prior to giving her a hearing test?
No.
So you've never
I
seen...
mean, it depends. Like, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they use a tympanogram. But, see, she had ear tubes.
Okay, so my question is,
Your question is
doesn't the
irrelevant.
audiologist generally look in the child's ears, Grace's ears, before they administer the hearing test?
Yes.
Okay. And has the audiologist ever told you that there was too much earwax to administer the hearing test?
We didn't have this hearing test that I'm referring to done by Grace's audiologist.
My question is, has an audiologist ever told you that there was too much earwax to proceed with the test for Grace?
They do not have the instruments to be able to know if there's earwax blocking. They don't have that. That's not their field,
Your
Ms. Kerrigan.
testimony
That's not what they do.
is that
That's what an
audiologists
ENT does.
are not familiar with
An
seeing
audiologist
earwax in children's ears?
An ENT is more skilled at determining whether the passageway is free of
But
debris.
the question was, do they look? And you said yes, correct?
I mean, I guess they look. I don't know, Ms. Kerrigan. I'm not an audiologist. All I know is they put things in my daughter's ear before she was 3 to give her an ABR. That's a auditory brain response test to see if the nerves in her brain are working.
Okay.
After
But
3,
at
they
a
give her a
recent-
behavioral test.
At a recent test, have you been present for a recent hearing test of Grace?
Only at Child Find.
Okay, and did they look in her ears prior to starting the test?
At Child Find, no, they didn't.
Okay, no further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Rosenblum.
Nothing else?
All right, closing, counsel. I assume that's all your witnesses. That's all you had listed. Okay. All right, you can step down.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I would argue that under NRCP 37, viewing the evidence in the light most favorable to the party, that Dr. Lenkite's report should be admitted without him present in court. My client had to pay the final cost of the evaluation, even though you ordered that it was split, and because he paid for that cost, which we felt was necessary for the trial, he was not able to pay for Dr. Lenkite to be here today, and I don't believe that he should be disadvantaged because the defendant refused to follow this court's order. In addition to that, the evidence has shown that Ms. Wagner has tremendous anger towards my client and that the multiple exchanges per week are no longer in the child's best interest. Further, the evidence has shown that Ms. Wagner engaged in battery domestic violence against my client and that she has poor co-parenting skills and that there have been multiple violations of the behavior order. We believe a lot of this is due to her mental health condition, which is why we believe Dr. Lenkite's report is important. Any one of these issues could lead to a change of custody, but the evidence here is overwhelming that it is no longer in Grace's best interest for the parties to share joint physical custody. My client brought the shirt today that has been altered from saying my family is best to my mommy is best. That was done during defendant's time. She had to have spent considerable time on that, and the fact that she believes that's an appropriate way for her to spend her time with Grace, and that it's appropriate to try and get back at my client through Grace demonstrates that she's not thinking clearly and she's not putting Grace's best interest first. The evidence has shown that it is in Grace's best interest for her father to have primary custody and sole legal custody for the purposes of education. My client has testified that he was present at the child find evaluation. He believes that all the services that have been offered are working in a package to help Grace get everything that she needs so that she'll be able to speak and sign, and that she'll be able to be in regular classrooms when she enters kindergarten. We don't view this preschool program as school. We view this preschool program as necessary treatment for Grace that happens to occur all in one location and has been extremely beneficial for Grace. My client has testified that Grace went from not speaking verbally at all to now speaking many things and singing the alphabet and identifying things. So while it may be true that defendant spent considerable time working with the child on sign language, and we don't dispute that, we believe it's equally important for Grace to learn to speak, and spending time at a school in speech therapy and spending time talking to other kids is extremely important to her development. And we believe the evidence has shown that. Most people would be on their best behavior while this case was pending, and it would be hard to prove their bad behavior. Here, the evidence has shown that Ms. Wagner has repeatedly violated the behavior order, as well as the court's order to take the minor child to school on Fridays. I believe she has a complete disregard for the court's orders. We've shown that via our exhibits, the emails that she stated about the court's orders, and her regards to the school that Grace has been attending. Further, Tiffany's behavior has escalated even since the last hearing date of April 3rd. And she has had altercations that have caused my client great concern at the school, and she's made false allegations against the school, which turned out to be unfounded. Ms. Wagner will likely claim that she has overcome the presumption for the battery DV conviction, but this is untrue. Ms. Wagner has serious credibility issues. She wasn't even able to give a straight answer regarding whether or not she's violated the behavior order, and this has been demonstrated throughout the case. She tried to claim self-defense to the police, but they did not believe her story. This is not a case where she took a plea offer and was given a battery domestic violence conviction. This is a case where the judge heard all the evidence, heard my client's testimony, heard Tiffany's testimony, decided that her testimony was not truthful, and found her guilty of battery domestic violence against my client beyond a reasonable doubt. Ms. Wagner has demonstrated hatred and anger towards my client throughout this case. She's not able to put Grace's best interest above her anger against my client because her anger is out of control. For these reasons, we believe that my client is the parent who will foster and encourage the relationship with Tiffany, but he will also be the parent that makes sure that she gets the early intervention that she desperately needs through schooling and speech therapy. By contrast, Ms. Wagner would like to remove Mr. Moreno from Grace's life completely, and she's expressed it would be better if he were dead. She even sent that to him in a text message. Pursuant to NRS 125C.003, the evidence has clearly shown that it is in Grace's best interest for Mark to have primary physical custody of Grace and sole legal custody for education purposes. He is requesting that the custody exchanges remain at Donna's house unless Donna's house is closed on that day. And he's also requesting that he have custody Sundays at 6 p.m. through Fridays at 1 p.m. This will ensure consistency for Grace during the school week. This will also ensure that Grace gets to school. I believe that Tiffany had an opportunity to demonstrate that she could comply with this court's orders, and she's failed to do so. And the court clearly said in the order filed on December 1st, 2016, that Tiffany must take the child to school during her timeshare. And I believe that the court also stated there would be consequences if she didn't. In the months leading right up to today, she failed to take the child, and she's come up with all sorts of reasons, including the false abuse allegations. We are asking that child support be set today based on primary custody. We're also asking that income be imputed to Ms. Wagner. Ms. Wagner has repeatedly misled the court with regard to whether or not she has employment and whether or not she's earning money. She's had a year to find employment, and If she's still claiming that she's working and not making money, then income should be imputed to her. She's acted in bad faith throughout this case. She has greatly increased attorney's fees. We believe that she's solely responsible for requiring the parenting coordinator, and we believe that that has been demonstrated through testimony from both sides. We are also concerned about continuing with a parenting coordinator if Tiffany does not get any help for her anger issues. We believe that it likely won't be helpful, even though my client would still continue to try to co-parent with her. We don't believe that one person can keep her anger in check if she's not going to get help for herself. So we are also asking for an award of attorney's fees in the amount of $5,000.
So running backwards, Your Honor, I don't believe an award of attorney's fees is appropriate in this case. There are obviously two very different opinions about Grace's education. Drastically different opinions. Dad believes that Grace should be in school. Mom believes that there are a plethora of programs and opportunities available through the community that would give Grace just as much as she could get. These are diametrically opposed opinions, and for that very issue, this matter needed to come before this court for a determination. I understand that the court made a temporary order regarding schooling, but I will remind the court, as the court knows, this is a 3.5-year-old child. She is not mandated to go to school. So this is what the court has ordered the parties to do on a temporary basis. Dad believes it's working, Mom believes it isn't. And so for that basis alone, the request for attorney's fees should be denied. I suppose that what counsel is arguing for is a reallocation of Ms. Price's cost, although certainly Ms. Price could make that recommendation to the court. She did not and has not, to our recollection. She just filed a recent report with the court and did not mention cost, nor did she mention that either parent was particularly at fault when she came here to testify. She did testify that there was some confusion about the role of the parenting coordinator, that Mom seemed to be confused about that role. But at no time do I recall Ms. Price saying that Mom is more responsible than Dad. This is clearly a highly conflicted case. These parties have high conflict. Mom has her own reasons for conflict, and Dad's testimony was that it is high conflict. As far as child support calculation, it's Mom's request for joint custody. At no time did she say that Dad should be removed from Grace's life. She didn't make that argument. That wasn't her testimony before the court. She gave a very clear schedule of what she would like and how she would like to see custody be divided. So the statement that Mom hates Dad or wants Dad removed from Grace's life is just not true, and that was not demonstrated either by Dad's testimony or Mom's testimony. The statement that Mom made false allegations against the school, also not true. Mom had concerns that her child was being spanked. Those concerns, based on testimony, turned out not to be true. This issue about the shirt, which I know Dad keeps bringing to court and wanting to present to this court, it wasn't substantiated by anything other than Dad's testimony. He certainly didn't present the court with pictures of the shirt taken at the time of the exchange. He says he brought the shirt to court here today, but even that wasn't presented to the court. Again, what this court has before it is two parents who very much love this little girl and very much care about her and have different opinions about what her education should look like. Again, Dad's opinion is that she should go to school. Mom's opinion is that the intervention she's receiving through the school could be obtained in better ways, in more frequent ways, through resources in the community. And so that is the issue before the court. In addition to that, regarding the best interest factors, both parents have lived in their homes respectively for quite a number of years. Dad has had the same job for quite a number of years. Mom was recently fired from her job. So in terms of the people with whom the child's been living and where the child has had the stable environment, both parents have lived in their homes for a long time. So we have that issue as it goes to both parents. This child is not old enough to give a preference and has not been interviewed for a preference. And the testimony of both parties is that Grace loves mom, loves dad, has a good relationship. Dad testified his relationship with Grace is great. Mom testified her relationship with Grace is awesome, and believe her words. Regarding the nomination, again, it's mom's contention that even after the 2015 decree where the parties agreed for joint custody, that dad gave up 600 hours of time. That was mom's testimony. Even dad testified that he was giving up Wednesdays, that there may have been some other times. So we believe that dad had made a nomination for mom to be the primary physical custodian. Regarding frequent associations, both parties testified that neither one has asked for time from the other parent and have been denied time if they've asked for additional time from the other parent. The level of conflict between these parents is high. No question. 80 pages of proposed text messages in a one-year period just brought to court today is a lot, and that's not even all of them. They're using a parenting coordinator. So yes, the level of conflict is high. Mom testified that she did ask dad repeatedly about school, about doctor's appointments, even prior to this court becoming involved, and dad just simply didn't respond. So mom's position is that she has attempted to co-parent with dad, and dad, up until this matter came to court, was not willing to co-parent with her. Obviously, these parties are having a difficult time cooperating to meet Grace's needs. Again, this goes back to their fundamental disagreement regarding school. The mental health issue of the parents is an interesting one. It would be mom's position that Dr. Lenkite's report is not admissible. Dr. Lenkite was not here to testify as to the report. He's not here to authenticate the report. And just because dad could not afford to bring Dr. Lenkite here to court does not mean that dad doesn't have the burden to authenticate and to subject Dr. Lenkite to cross-examination. So it's our position that Dr. Lenkite's report should not be considered by this court in a final custodial determination. This child, regarding physical, developmental, and emotional needs, again, the child has an IEP. This was discussed at length. Reading the plain language of the IEP, it appears that the child is receiving 120 minutes per month of speech therapy in a self-contained classroom, and I believe 240 minutes per month in a group setting. So again, this comes down to what is in Grace's best interest and which program is going to give her the best opportunities. Well, dad would testify that she's making all these milestones because of school. Mom's testimony is she was teaching Grace even prior. Grace is 3.5 years old, and so being potty trained, becoming more verbal, knowing your animals, knowing the alphabet, these are things that we would hope any child would reach as they grow older and become smarter and in the community and are able to learn more. Again, we talked about nature of relationship with each child, with the child and the parent. And the other issue, Your Honor, is the domestic violence. And again, it is mom's contention that she's overcome the presumption. She testified that she was engaged in classes. She was convicted. You heard mom's testimony of what happened. You heard dad's testimony of what happened. And the facts are the facts, Your Honor. Mom was convicted. She can't get around that. But the reality of dad's testimony makes no sense. He says that they're walking in the car and mom had her hand in her pocket and she pepper sprayed him. Mom's testimony is that dad grabbed her, he was choking her, and she pepper sprayed him. Just based on its face, it seems like mom wouldn't pepper spray dad for no reason whatsoever. But again, she was convicted. She can't get around that, but we believe that she has overcome that presumption. So considering all in all, Your Honor, we believe that it is in Grace's best interest, and it is our position that this court should award joint physical custody of this child to both parties, that the timeshare that mom proposed be implemented by the court, that mom be permitted the opportunity to obtain services for Grace outside of the preschool.
Thank you. I'll take this matter under advisement. I am admitting Dr. Lenkite's report pursuant to EDCR 5.304 subsection B as a confidential exhibit. And all of the things contained within his report that are within his personal knowledge are admissible. I made the outsourced referral for a reason, to help me, the trier of fact, to determine the mental health and stability of the defendant. And plaintiff has footed the entire bill for that. That's not the reason that I'm admitting it, but I'm just making a record that parties were to divide the cost, and I don't think the plaintiff should be prejudiced because he couldn't afford to bring Dr. Linkite here, because in any situation where the court appoints a neutral evaluator, those findings are important to the court. That's why I did it in the first place. And for mom to stonewall the report and say, well, because I'm not paying for it, Dad, you don't get it in, that's not a genuine argument pursuant to 5.304 subsection B. So it will remain a confidential exhibit. It will be marked as court's exhibit number 1, left side filed, so it won't be available. But the record will indicate that I'm admitting it. As to the things that are within the report that are within the personal knowledge of Dr. Linkite. And that would be what his testing results are, the data that he got directly from the defendant. Okay? Everything else remains status quo until you hear from me. Thank you, counsel. I appreciate your hard work.
Your Honor, as a matter of housekeeping, will the court issue a written decision?
Yes, in some form.
And Your Honor, you expect to have a